Welcome to the Fiscal Philosophy YouTube channel. I own Walgreens, but just because I have Walgreens doesn't necessarily mean it's right for you. Today I'm going to discuss my 2024 outlook and strategy with regards to Walgreens Boots Alliance. It pretty much goes without saying that 2023 was a challenging year for Walgreens Boots Alliance and its shareholders. If you were holding during this period of time like I was, I'm sure it seemed like every single time you looked, the next piece of news coming out about Walgreens was worse than the last. Although I do think that a lot of it was temporary. But moving on to this year, it's only a few days into January 2024, and they did just report their financial results for this first part of 2024, and to be honest, the new CEO is making quite a splash. He has decided to end Walgreens Boots Alliance's run as a dividend aristocrat. This is big news, honestly. This is the first time in, I believe, 47 years where they are actually not increasing the dividend, but instead cutting it. But we have learned lessons with other stocks that just because a dividend is cut doesn't necessarily mean bad things for your future returns. One of the major issues hitting the Walgreens financials last year was, of course, the multi-billion-dollar settlement that was paid out for opioids. Now, if you look at most of these articles, they basically show a combination of companies: CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, J&J, possibly Kroger, amongst others. Basically, any company with a pharmacy division basically had to pay out a certain portion of money towards a bunch of opioid lawsuits. And to my recollection, Walgreens ended up shelling out somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 billion towards this issue last year. And $6 billion is a pretty substantial sum for a company the size of Walgreens. Walgreens also, unfortunately, saw major declines in vaccine-related revenue. Basically, they got a big pandemic bump during the 2020-2021 years, and we saw a lot of that fade away in the years following, which hit their bottom line especially hard. Also, Walgreens, as well as a lot of other major retailers, were plagued with a rash of retail theft incidents. Retail theft in 2023 seemed like it was everywhere in the news and really hurts the bottom lines of retail businesses that have really slim net margins to begin with. There was also a very substantial leadership shakeup in Walgreens in September. The CEO at the time, Rosalind Brewer, suddenly and unexpectedly announced that she was stepping down from both the board and as the chief executive for the beleaguered pharmacy retailer. They did place an interim CEO and have since filled the role with somebody permanently, but this did shake things up and rightly so concerned shareholders about what kind of dysfunction may have been going on behind the scenes. But hopefully a new set of eyes on Walgreens and a new leadership will bring it in a more positive direction going forward. That's the condensed version that basically brings us up to today, where new CEO Tim Wentworth has just slashed the dividend, which of course has cheesed off the dividends are free money crowd and sent the share price tumbling. Now, honestly, in this case, I think I'm going to take my lessons learned from Intel, where sometimes cutting the dividend is actually the most shareholder value friendly thing in the longer term, and that just because the price has temporarily dropped due to a dividend cut doesn't mean necessarily that the long-term outlook is grim. Personally, I don't hold the dividend cut against the new CEO. He was hired to grow the healthcare business, and the dividend was paying out a lot of the company's cash, which, frankly, after the beating they took in 2023, they're really strapped for. In fact, I mean, the growth of this dividend had pretty much stalled anyway, so I don't really think that it was the best use of cash at this moment. And the primary job of the CEO is to figure out how to best allocate the resources of the company for the best long-term results. This brings me to my thoughts for 2024 and how I plan to approach Walgreens stock. So I do still own some shares, and I plan to give this new healthcare focused CEO a chance to do the job he was hired to do, which I think is to make Walgreens into a company that is healthcare with a side of retail rather than the other way around. I think that's a pretty big and bold transformation to make, but I do think that is the true future and potential of Walgreens. And I'm overall a healthcare bull. So them pivoting more towards the healthcare side is something that I encourage them to do and want them to do. So I'll be listening intently to any earnings calls now and going forward in order to get a better idea of this CEO's vision for how to actually do that. Personally, I think that a little bit of patience goes an awful long way in investing, and that's why I'm taking this approach. There's a saying, and it's a little bit of a cliche, that fools rush in. Well, when it comes to investing, I also believe it goes the other way, and sometimes fools rush out. For example, with Intel, they were in a pretty similar position the beginning of 2023, looking pretty bad. Stock price falling basically in half over the prior year, the dividend getting cut, and everything else. And, that definitely cheesed off the dividends are free money crowd. But since then, a lot of things have definitely improved. The perception has improved. And at this point, anyone who held through that time has gained substantially. While I will acknowledge there's an emotional component, and it's hard and stressful to sit there looking at red numbers in your account day after day, I think it's also important to get that in check and have that under control if you want to be the best investor possible, and not let those emotions dictate what you do. Earnings estimates for 2024 for Walgreens, management is guiding for between $3.20 and $3.50 per share. This is roughly putting them at about a 7x multiple on their 2024 numbers. And they're expected to get back into the $4 range by 2026, with it going above that in 2027, which would put them in something like the mid-single digit multiples on their earnings. I personally believe that if Walgreens gets back to firing on all cylinders, that they're certainly worth more than a 6, 7, or 8 times earnings multiple, but that's just my opinion on their valuation. However, if they fail to do that, well, at that point, I would just essentially be looking to sell some covered calls just out of the money and basically eventually accept assignment and recoup some of my cost with those covered call premiums and accept whatever loss I do take as a small tax loss harvest to offset other dividends, options, premiums, etc. in my brokerage account. No big deal. I appreciate it if you made it to the end of the video. Let me know in the comments below what you think about Walgreens. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. Hit the notification bell so you can catch all my videos as soon as they come out. Make sure you hit that like button, helps me with the algorithm. Make sure you follow me on X/Twitter at Mr. Macho Mog. Link is in the description. Also, my Discord's link is in the description. Consider becoming a member to support me and what I do on this channel. Take care, everybody.